Hey, welcome back to Anatomy Physiology. We're in the third chapter on the integumentary system, which means your skin and other membranes. This is your second video of the chapter, so if you did not see a video of me wearing this blue shirt, blue tie combo, then you missed out on the vocabulary. So go back and check that out. We're going to be revisiting a lot of those words today. So let's jump in and get some more detail. All right, integumentary system. We are talking about our skin and other epithelial tissue. Remember, we just got out of the chapter on tissues. Epithelial tissue has a lot to do with membranes. That is our chapter. We are talking about membranes, the membranes around the outside of your body, which is your skin, and all the other membranes that are inside your body, because everything in your body has a membrane. Your heart has a membrane around it, your liver has a membrane around it, your stomach has a membrane around it, and inside it, there are membranes everywhere. So let's start talking about it. We got four main types. We're talking about the serous membrane, mucous membrane, synovial membrane, and cutaneous membrane. These were all vocabulary words. So let's go in and talk about details about each, starting with the serous membrane. Your vocab definition was they line the body cavities that lack openings to the outside world, which means in here, in this picture, if you were to go into some kind of science fiction movie and they shrink you down really small and you were standing on this by the stomach right here, if you were standing on top of the stomach, you would actually be standing on top of a membrane surrounding the stomach. You can kind of see it right here, kind of stretching out and holding it in place. Right? That membrane is the serous membrane. And by lack opening, I mean if you're here, you're stuck in the body. You do not have an exit. If you were inside the stomach, you would have an exit in two different directions. But outside the stomach, you're stuck there. Any place you would be stuck is covered with serous membrane. So this is the body cavity of a person cut in half. They're facing the left. So this is the chest, this is the vertebrae, and this is the body cavity. Thoracic cavity, abdominal cavity, pelvic cavity. And the walls of the cavity are wallpapered with serous membrane. And then all the organs inside the cavity are also wrapped, like vacuum sealed, saran wrapped with serous membranes and covered in something called serous fluid, right? The cells that make up this membrane secrete this fluid. Remember, protein synthesis from Bio 1. Cells create proteins, and those proteins leave the cells. These proteins are being used to make serous fluid, which is just a lubricant so that all of your organs can easily slide around each other without getting stuck. So when you're moving around, you're playing sports or something, you're not tearing yourself apart. So this is all protection for you. You also see membrane reaching out and holding you to the membrane that lines the walls so your organs don't fall down. They're actually held in place. That's what the yellow is. Mucous membranes. This is going to be lining cavities that do have access to the outside world, right? So inside your nasal passage, if you're touching this part, there's an exit right here through the nostril. You also have it all the way down this passage into your throat, into your lungs, all mucous membrane inside your mouth, mucous membrane. And why is it called mucous membrane? Because they all secrete mucus, right? You know that from inside your nose, you blow your nose to get rid of mucus, but you have other kinds of mucus. So inside your mouth, the saliva is a type of mucus. And then around your eyes, the tears produced in here are a type of mucus. So not all mucus is really gross. And as I said, anywhere that has access to the outside world, so in the mouth or in the nasal passage, down the throat, and either the esophagus or the trachea, in the lungs and the stomach, and then further into the intestines, all of that is lined with a mucous membrane so things can move easily. Or so dust can get trapped and not go down into your lungs. Synovial membranes. These are specialized membranes found in the joints of your body. Right now, if you're looking at a knee, we learned in the notes from last chapter, we saw Where one bone meets another bone, there's a bunch of cartilage there for added protection. But look at this right here. There's a lot of empty space in between the bones and the kneecap. And we're going to fill that space up with a kind of water balloon called synovial membranes. This water balloon is filled with a kind of fluid called synovial fluid, which is a lubricant so that your bones can move easily, freely, without scraping past each other and wearing down. So this actually adds to the lifespan of your joints. They last longer. And cutaneous membrane, your skin, the all-important skin. Most people don't realize how important your skin is. A lot of you take care of it because you think it's going to make you look nice and get a date, but you don't realize that it's also keeping you alive. And no, I don't mean it's holding your blood in. That's your blood vessels' jobs. It's actually keeping things out. Your skin's job is to protect you from foreign invaders, from bacteria and viruses. It's actually the strongest bit of protection you have, stronger than your immune system even. So let's take a look at this. This is a skeleton. I don't have a name for him. Let's call him Hank. This is Hank, the skeleton. And Hank now has skin. This skin is a protective covering. Before, germs could very easily get in, and if you had any organs, they can get into the organs. If you had blood vessels, they could get into the blood vessels, and blood vessels are very easy for bacteria to get into. So we cover Hank here with skin to keep all of those nasty germs out. Which is why if someone sneezes on you, you kind of want to wash that. You wash your hands, wash your face, so that you don't accidentally put it in through your open mouth or your open nose. Your skin also has a very important job of regulating body heat. It's going to hold heat in the winter so you stay nice and warm. And when in the summer, your skin has specialized sweat glands that's going to allow heat to escape with the liquid and cool you off, or at least make you not as hot. You'll still be hot. Nothing's perfect. And your skin houses special sensory receptors. You know them as your nerves, and they tell you when you're in danger, if something is being damaged, so that you can fix the problem. There are people who actually do not have functional nerves in places. They don't feel feelings, and if anything's being damaged, they don't know about it until it's too late and it can't be fixed. Feeling pain is actually a good thing in small doses. So let's break down the skin into its 3 layers. Yes, if you remember from the vocab, 3 layers of your skin. The first top layer is known as the epidermis. If you look at this gray wavy line going all the way down here and then up here, from here up is your epidermis. The bottom of that layer is where all the youngest cells are. Those are young cells all going through mitosis and making more young cells over and over and over and over again. You're constantly making more skin cells. As they get older, they start getting pushed toward the top as they flatten out because it is squamous epithelium. Remember, stratified squamous epithelium is the type of epidermal cells we have. And as they get older and flatter, and then they die of old age, we don't get rid of them. Instead, we are going to do something called keratinization, where a special protein is going to be made and released and added to the cells, and is going to be kind of a glue or a cement that's going to harden your dead skin cells, stick them together, and create one solid protective layer. By the way, that top layer has an official name, kind of a funny word for you guys. It's called the horny layer. Yes, you heard me correctly. That is called the horny layer. And when you are trying to exfoliate your skin, get the pumice stone and scratch it all off, you are getting rid of your horny layer. It's actually not a good thing to do that. You want to keep that horny layer because it is a protective layer. It keeps you safe. Yeah, you'll have dry skin, so try moisturizer instead of scraping it away, because you need that. Inside that epidermis, you have specialized skin cells that are more than just physical protection. You have some that are protecting you from excess sunlight. These specialized cells, shown here in purple, are known as melanocytes. And again, protein synthesis, these guys are undergoing a lot of protein synthesis. They're making tons of these proteins called melanin. Melanin is a special protein called a pigment. Its only job is to be a color. That's all pigments do. They're just colors. And this color happens to be brown. Brown does a very good job of protecting you from UV radiation. It is a natural sunblock. So the darker your skin tone, the more melanin you have, the safer you are from UV radiation. And no, if you have darker skin tones, you do not have more melanocytes. Right? All people have roughly the same amount. Whether you are the darkest person in the room or the lightest person in the room, we all have this about the same amount of these cells. So why would one person be darker and one person be lighter? It has to do with how hard these cells are working. If you have a lighter skin tone, then your melanocytes are not producing a lot of melanin. So your skin is not very dark. Technically, your skin is brown. Everybody is technically brown. It's just a matter of how brown is your skin. And that has to do with whether you're producing a lot of melanin, more melanin, or the most melanin. And that really just going to come down to where your ancestors from. This is an evolution thing, a natural selection. The people who lived in certain areas of the world produced a certain amount of melanin, and that was the best for their environment. I'll show you what I mean. I managed to find a map of the world based on indigenous people. What do I mean? What are indigenous people? The people who were originally from these lands. Right? You understand like American history where a bunch of people came from all around the world and populated America. No, I mean the people who were originally from the land. So in America, we're talking Native Americans. Up in Canada, we're talking about First Nation people. And then Australia, the Aborigines, right? The original inhabitants of the lands. And if you look at those people and you look at their skin tones based on location or where they're from, skin tones actually get darker and darker the closer you get to the equator. And lighter the further away you get from the equator. That is because melanin is a natural sunblock. So the people who live in areas with a whole lot of sun, too much sun's bad. UV radiation will give you sunburn, can give you cancer. You need to block that. So the people who naturally produced more melanin did had better jobs surviving. And if you're alive, you're able to reproduce and pass on those genes. Over the centuries, more and more people with darker skin tones were just being born around the equator. And then as people moved away from the equator, it turned out you do need some sunlight. Sunlight is going to help your body produce vitamin D, which is good for your bones. So people started getting really weak bones as they got closer to the poles. So people who naturally produced lighter skin tones survived better and passed on their genes. And then over the centuries, more and more people were being born with lighter skin tones. So the whole point of this is the only purpose of your skin tones is to help you handle sunlight. That's it. That's all your skin color does. Sunlight. Protection and or letting it in depending on what you need. That's it. Right, moving on. Underneath your epithelial cells, you have, if you remember last chapter, the basement membrane. Because there's nothing on top holding your epithelial cells down. So you have to glue your epidermis to the next layer. That's the basement membrane, this layer of connective tissue that anchors everything down. And that's how you're going to know where the transition is. Another picture of it here, and this dark purple would be the basement membrane. The light purple would be the living cells, and the darker color up here would be where all the keratinized cells are. Beneath the basement membrane is your second layer of skin called the dermis. This is your thick layer of connective tissue. It's very thick because it has a lot of other things in there. It has hair and blood vessels and nerves and sweat glands and sebaceous glands. There's a lot of stuff going on in there. The dermis is a connective tissue that's going to hold all of those things in place. So let's talk about all those things briefly, but we'll go into more detail in the next video. The dermis has all of these blood vessels that are, oh, sorry, there's your dermis. Forgot I had the arrows, right? And it has all of these blood vessels that are just dropping off nutrients so that your skin stays healthy. You eat food, the nutrients are in that food, your digestive system puts it into your blood, and your blood brings it to your skin and other organs. It's also going to help regulate body temperature. Now, the blood vessels in your dermis contain a lot of body heat because we learned in Bio 1, water, which is what blood is mostly made out of, can hold onto heat very well. So your blood vessels bring the heat to the surface of your skin so it can radiate off of you and you don't overheat and die. You have nerves. They're going to carry signals to your brain. When you zoom in on that, there's the nerve. You can see the nerve endings. When you put pressure on the skin, the nerves feel that pressure, send a signal to your brain telling you about it, and your brain recognizes that you got touched. And these nerves spread across your entire body. And yes, this is a real nervous system that came from an actual person. And you can actually, last I checked, see this nervous system on display here in Philadelphia at the Drexel University Cadaver Lab. So that's just really cool. You have hair follicles, which are a bunch of young cells going through mitosis, supplying new cells to your hair so that your hair can grow. And sweat glands, right here, zoom in on that, there we go, which, even though we already said your blood vessels are going to regulate body heat, they don't always do a perfect job. Sometimes you need to pick up the pace and get rid of even more heat, and that's where your sweat glands come in. Your sweat glands take a lot of water from your body and a bunch of other proteins that are in your sweat, a lot of salt, and that water is the main thing, and it's going to absorb a lot of heat from your blood and then kick that heat, that hot blood out of your body, so you sweat the heat away and you're cooling down even faster. All right, moving on to your subcutaneous layer. Down here is all of the fat under your skin, also thicker blood vessels. This layer consists of a whole lot of connective tissue to hold your skin down to your body, which is why you can pull on your skin and have it not just come off. And it is made up of a lot of adipose tissue. We learned last chapter is a fancy word for your fat. And its job is to conserve a lot of body heat because you have a lot of blood vessels in there using the fat to keep your heat in the winter. And then more heat coming in from inside your body is going to get pushed back in so you don't lose too much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is where we are going to call it quits for today. Starting in the next video, we're going to talk more about all of these things we just talked about, but in more detail. Those are called your accessory organs. So look for that video. Until then, check Google Classroom and see if I left you any work to do, and I will see you in the next video.